Good morning, everybody. Look at us. What a group of folks. All right, and to all the folks on the live stream, welcome. We're happy you're here. I'm Aaron Clark, Director of Strategic Partnerships at Stewardship Partners. Oh, thanks. Some fans in the house, that's cool. I'm so excited that we're here together. It's been a long time. Some faces have changed, some have stayed the same. But thanks for sticking with us through the thick and the thin. It's just amazing to bring people together. So welcome to the 8th Annual Green Infrastructure Summit of the Salish Sea. This year's theme is Money as Medicine. Historic investments are a historic opportunity for healing. And this concept draws directly from the work and the writing of Edgar Villanueva and his concept of decolonizing wealth that he's written about. And this largely comes from a philanthropy world, but it's very applicable to, I think, all of us in this room, because there are people in this room who come from all different places, all different sectors. This has always been about connecting the dots, the .coms, the .orgs, the .govs, the .edus, because these big environmental problems, stormwater in particular, are too big for any of us to solve alone. Agencies can't do it alone. Nonprofits certainly can't do it alone. Businesses won't be able to do it alone. Even research institutions can't do it alone. But we together can do a lot and make a big difference. So that's what this is about. And to quote directly from Mr. Villanueva, money is like water. It's a precious, life-giving resource. Money should be a tool of love that facilitates relationships and helps us thrive, rather than something that hurts and divides us. If we use it for sacred, life-giving, restorative purposes, it can be medicine. And that, when our host committee that organizes this event got together and we talked about this moment and what's happening now and what is needed, that was something that really rose to the top for us and felt very well encapsulated in this notion of decolonizing wealth and using money as medicine for healing. So that's part of what we're going to talk about today, but there's a lot more. Hopefully everyone noticed that there's copies of this water lines map at your table, outside of the table in the lobby as well. We really wanted to bring this forward as context. There is a tendency in environmental fields for shifting baselines. You kind of look at what it's like today and you're like, okay, well, I don't want it to get any worse than this. But really, there's a different baseline. There is a history of stewardship here that goes back to time immemorial. And there is a reference state that we should all be thinking of and keeping in mind. It may not be seem very reachable, approachable to us in our lifetimes, but I think that's okay. I think we have to work long and hard and do the long, slow work of healing at the same time that many are also doing the hard work of stopping the harm, stopping the bleeding. You know, it's like you need your emergency room, right? Because we have to save lives that are urgent and are at death's door. And we've got a few of those in a lot of different contexts: social issues, environmental issues, salmon at 10% of what they should have been, what they should be and were, orcas on the brink of extinction. These issues are in need of triage, but there is also the important work of the physical therapist, which many of us in this room are the equivalent of in terms of restoring environments, bringing health back. So it's my hope that today we can start to think about and see ourselves as that inflection point. We've been in decline for a long time. We've been seeing a lot of really important work. We're standing on the shoulders of giants who have stopped a lot of bleeding, but we probably are still going downhill in terms of the health of the Salish Sea ecosystem and a lot of human outcomes as well. But if we can continue that inflection, if we can start and in our generation see that we are starting to rise, that we are starting to heal, we have started the long, slow process, like the process of growing a tree that might take decades, centuries. If we can be that inflection point, I think that will be a legacy and a history and a historic role for this moment and this time and this community. So that's what I am inviting you all here for, and excited that you're here for. Oh, I was going to show that. That's Edgar's book. It's beautiful. I recommend it highly. The audiobook is great too. I want to thank a lot of people. This event, I get to stand up here and pretend like I'm inviting you to this thing. It is not me. This is a huge group effort. I want to thank our sponsors, King County and the Boeing Company, both as a premier level. Evergreen Forest sponsors is the Nature Conservancy. Thank you all so much. We've had a lot of support, and these sponsors are the reason that we were able to generously offer discounts and scholarships and open this event up and make it as accessible as it is, to the point that we are at capacity. So a huge thanks to all of these sponsors, and we'll hold our applause to the end. I also want to acknowledge our host committee. Every year we have a little bit of a rotation. We want folks that are new and folks that have been part of this for a long time. Ecos, Angela is down here. Raise your hand. Jacobs, Jesse, where's Jesse? Over there. His hand is not going up very high, but that's okay. Hannah Kett from the Nature Conservancy. You will see all these people. Bridget from the Salish Sea Collective, who you'll see very momentarily. In the back there she is. And we have Catherine and Neda from King County, who you'll see later. Ani Jacqueline from WSU and the Stormwater Center. Department of Commerce, Maria is somewhere there. Thank you. And this team really is the voice and the point. It is their creative vision that brings this together. So a huge thanks to the host committee. We also have a vast advisory committee that helped pick and rank and look at the abstracts that were submitted. Thank you to all of these organizations for their participation as well. And then a huge thanks to my team at Stewardship Partners. All of y'all, raise your hands. There's one. They're out in the lobby as well. You'll recognize us because a lot of us are wearing our brand new vests with our little insignia on them. We're like, we finally got the merch. And then I can't thank enough the Cascadia Consulting Group team. Brent up in the lobby or the booth. Lynn and May, who you've met checking in. If the host committee is the heart, the blood, sweat, and tears is all Cascadia Consulting. And with that, I also want to thank our speakers, some of whom are pictured here, and who you'll get to meet later. And to just say, this is needed. You all told us that when we ran out of tickets. And to those of you online, we'll do our best to make this as close to in-person for you as we can. We also have an unprecedented number of students participating this year, which I think is a huge improvement. I think talking across generations and bringing the youth forward has always been part of our hope and agenda. This is intergenerational work. It needs all of us. Let's see, I'm totally off script at this point, but I wanted to cover a couple of logistics as well. There's your agenda. You have a copy of that in front of you. There we go. And then, so for logistics, because we have an online contingent, I'm hoping everybody will speak into microphones for question and answer. Otherwise, they can't hear what's being said. That also, just a reminder for speakers, try to talk into the microphones as much as possible. Bathrooms are up the hall to the right. And there are also locker rooms. There's a lactation room, and there are more bathrooms upstairs. There's also a meditation room around the corner. If being in person with 200 plus people is just like, which it is, make use of these resources. This is an amazing space for that. Let's see. You will see that we got some breaks in between sessions. There will be ongoing refreshments. Just watch out for that door that goes up and down when we're opening and closing it. We don't want anybody to get squished. And let's see. I think that's getting close. Oh yeah. All right, so with that, I am gonna invite up Stefan Klassen from Cascadia College. They are our site hosts, and we're very excited to have them here. And He's going to tell you a little bit about some of the amazing things that are happening here.
Good morning, everybody. I usually hate public speaking, so I'm excited to be talking to people who actually care about stormwater, permaculture, and landscape management. So this is really thrilling to be able to speak to you all this morning. I'm Stefan Clausen. I'm the Assistant Director of Sustainable Practices here at Cascadia College. For those of you who don't know, Cascadia and UW-Bothell here are a joint campus. We were founded in the early 2000s on the ideas of restoration management and permaculture. You'll see on the schedule, set up now. You'll see on the schedule at 3 o'clock, I'm giving a tour later so we can actually go visit some of the things here on campus, because the campus was initially created with the idea of restoring a 58-acre wetland just downstream of us on North Creek. This is one of the largest restoration projects on the West Coast at the time, and the campus has kept up with these sort of permaculture management structures and other ideas to maintain a sort of environmental example of campus, of what a campus can actually do for sustainability. We're the #1 campus in the nation for sustainable grounds by the ASHE STARS recognition for 5 years running at this point. We are 100% pesticide free across the entire campus. So that gives us Salmon Safe certification, National Wildlife certification, Bee Campus USA certification, and we're the only school to get the new certification for Rewild Your Campus. Cascadia is also really priding itself on trying to do different things in education, right? We're a school that started with things like learning communities where students get more experience in person with different speakers, different opportunities. And we have a bachelor's degree now in sustainable practices, which is what I'm leading and usually have to advertise. So if you have students, please send them your way. And then we also are now starting an Indigenous Studies program. We're the only community college who has hired a tribal liaison to try and start organizing connections to our local tribes, connecting them to things like our stormwater projects on campus and our landscape, and finding ways to educate students on Indigenous studies. Otherwise, I'm just really happy that you're all here. We call this campus sort of our third place, or our jewel of Bothell, because this is a place where we really have 121 permaculture pesticide-free acres in this area. There's not many other campuses that do this. I've been to many places and many campuses, and none of them have this sort of wetland or restoration area. So I hope you take some time today, even if you don't join us for the tour, to check out campus, see the different areas around this building, and yeah, enjoy. Thank you so much.
All right, so with that, I am going to bring up my friend Bridget Ray from the Salish Sea Collective, host committee member and chair of this session, who will introduce her speakers and her panel and help us get started in a good way with this event.
Good morning, my friends, my relatives. My name is Bridget Ray. My grandfather's name is Bridget. But I grew up on the Salish Sea, on the Coast Salish people. I represent the field grass, plants, and our maritime life. I'm here with two of my good friends today, Tim Lehman and Tony Berkson, who I've worked with in tribal planning for a while. But before we get started with our panel,
hi. This is my longhouse voice. In our tradition, we use our longhouse voice when we're singing so that I don't overload the mic. But I'm going to sing a song for you today to get things started in a good way, which is how we like to do things. It's a bear song called Chichayo, which is Chumash, and it was sung at the Frank's Landing, given to the people for the fish-ins in the 1970s. My mom was there. My godmother made a movie called As Long as the Rivers Run, Carol Burns, who made that, and it's a story about fishing rights and Native peoples carrying on their traditional lifeways and treaty rights and sovereignty, which we're going to cover a bit today. But this bear song is about healing. The bear is often at the bottom of the story pole because they hold up community. And it's spring, and it's time to wake them up. So enemy chicha, enemy, enemy chicha, enemy chicha, enemy chicha, enemy chicha, enemy chicha, Okay, so we've started that song. I'll finish it later when we go on our walk at 2:55. We're going to say hello to the land. And I also want to say a special hello to the students in the audience today. This is your home, however temporary. This is the land to which you belong, and so we're happy to be here amongst you today as your guests. So with that, we'll get started. Oh, he gave me the microphone. So my name is Bridget Ray. My mother is Colleen Jolly. I grew up in the Stechess area, which is the original place name for Hello. Olympia, Washington. I steward 10 acres there with my mom for the past 40 years. We've been living and taking care of that place, which is our original instructions. As people, we provide human ecological services to that little piece of paradise. There's a table in the back in the hallway that I brought some samples of the water lines geography book that you can look up the place names of where you live and the watersheds where you live if you like. There's some cedar back there and a sample of some old man frog balm that I made. We take the bounty and the medicine from the land and we make salves and medicine to give out to community, which is our way. The wealth from the land is then redistributed through our human ecological services to our friends and relatives here. So I had hoped to give salve to everybody today, but I'm out of tins. So if you can grab a sample, please feel free. It's for all of us. So I'm going to introduce these two fine people to my left. Tony Berkson, here in front of the Nisqually wastewater facility. And I met Tony through the Paddle to Nisqually in 2016. I'm wearing the shirt. I'm wearing and I dressed up today. I wore my muck boots, especially for this occasion. And Tim Lehman, who I serve on the board at the Na'a'ilihi Fund. Na'a'ilihi is Chinook jargon for Mother Earth. We're native-led nonprofit grant making, where we give grants out to green infrastructure projects in Indian country. The region that we serve is Washington, Oregon, Montana, Idaho, Alaska, some parts of Northern California, where people are doing green things in our community. And so I've had the privilege of working with many of those cohorts. We have a green infrastructure cohort with Na'a'ilihi. And we're going on year 3 where we have funded their projects and also helped them with program development. So we're here today to talk a bit about how we as tribal planners and are compare and contrast to conventional planning. I think it's probably a first for this conference, which is always fun. So I'm going to introduce Tony and then Tim. And forgive me for a minute while I read off my phone. So Tony has a degree from Oregon State University. He's a dedicated, decorated veteran of the U.S. Navy. He's there's a whole lot of things here. Yes. He's the Public Works Director for the Nisqually Indian Tribe from 2008 to present. He has several awards, and Tony's going to have a chance to talk a bit about who he is and what he does here. Each of the speakers will have 5 to 10 minutes to talk a bit about themselves, and then we're going to ask a series of questions. But over the last 15 years, the past 15 plus years working for the Nisqually tribe, He's developed the infrastructure for water, sewer, facilities, state highway upgrades serving the Nisqually Reservation, tribal housing, frontage roads, stormwater, and main electrical service upgrades, all to serve a fast-growing community and enterprise. The Nisqually tribe is committed to maintaining a leadership role as stewards of the land and water by applying best practices for the environment and the people. So welcome, Tony. Thanks for being here. I'm thrilled. Tony came up all the way today. He came from farthest away, so he's going to talk first, but I am also going to introduce Tim, my co-conspirator and colleague in wealth distribution and awesomeness. I actually met Tim at UW in the Wethlabalt, which is living breath in the Lushootseed language. We were there having some preliminary talks about the Indigenous Seattle project and Indigenous spaces in and around an urban setting. So it's really great to have someone from reservation community and someone from urban planning. As far as planners go, they're not, well, you'll get to that of who you are, but Tim is passionate about empowering communities through design. And through this empowerment, Tim looks to deconstruct past and current design and processes that contribute to the marginalization of communities of color. For the past 10 years, Tim has worked with Indigenous communities and communities of color, helping them reclaim their communities and culture through the process of design. So Tim's received a master's in landscape architecture and a master's in urban design and planning in 2016, and a Bachelor of Arts degree in geography. Okay, I didn't know that was possible, or I totally would have done that. Okay. All from the University of Washington. Apparently the University of UW's doing very cool things. I think they were the third college to ever have a longhouse style building on their main campus. The first being Evergreen College. Thank you very much, the Evergreen State College. And he's currently a lecturer for the UW Landscape Architecture Department and the Indigenous Strategic Advisor for the City of Seattle Office of Planning and Community Development. He serves as a board treasurer for the Na'a Fund, and he loves to travel. While at home in Seattle, he likes to be with friends and family in any setting, and you can find him out in a park or a local brewery. And I do believe there's a brewery or some sort of brouhaha, at least after this, where there's a water conscious brewery. And, you know, when businesses are practicing water conscious and conservation, I think we should support that. Okay, so Tony, could you speak for a little bit about the projects, that who you are, why it matters, and the impact to your community?
Yeah, certainly. Good morning, everyone. The advantage of being the first to speak during the day is you don't see any of the head nods and hitting the table and all that. So good morning. Squally-Opsh, the Nisqually people, people of the river, people of the grass. I've been very fortunate enough to serve that Nisqually community for 15 years now, and look forward to completing what I think has been an exponential growth to the tribe. I've been the project manager for the better part of 14 years on approximately $58 million in capital projects. With that comes a great responsibility to ensure a certain sustainability in how it's constructed. So what we have done in my time with the tribe is to put together a tribal planning group, master planning group, which didn't exist when I arrived. And I'll give you an example. In 2008, when I arrived at the tribe, I was given a tour on the northern section of the reservation. We're two non-contiguous portions. I was taken up to a dirt road. There was a path going down. There were 7 homes placed in that area. These were 7 homes that had been cut in half, transported to the reservation, and set on top of foundations. No utilities, no roads, no electricity, no water. And I said, how in the heck did you guys decide on this one? I said, well, it just looked like a good spot. So since then, and 50-some million dollars later, we have done, I think, a great job in putting together the planning in tribal communities. And I'm going to explain a little bit about tribal communities and how we go about planning. It's not your normal standard in how municipalities go through their planning process. There are much more steps involved. And by steps, I mean that we have to ensure that we get down to the details of community involvement. Elders won't come to standard master planning meetings. You go to elders. Elders are the ones who determine what they would like to see in their community. Elders are the ones who give you the historical values of how you're going to build something. Elders are the ones who will tell you, this is the way. So we take a concerted amount of time, and it takes a longer time in our planning process in order to bring that information together. And it's our job to ensure what we do reflects exactly what it is that they envision. And over time, I think we've done a very good job of that. But we always also have to keep an eye on what is in the best interest of the community as a whole. So there's kind of that fine line we walk in order to not only get construction progress done on budget, on time, but also be sensitive to what it is we have to do as far as the environment. In 2014, I undertook a wastewater management study. In the south portion of the reservation, we had nothing but septic systems, large enterprises, the largest septic system I've ever seen in my life. So I went to the tribe and I said, well, I need $12 million to get rid of all these septics. And I installed a membrane bioreactor wastewater treatment plant, eliminating 80 septic tanks. So I explained in my presentation that we are expending environmental capital. We are asking Mother Nature to take care of this waste right now. Let me bring it down to a single point of treatment. Let me take care of it. And I will take it to the point to where it is more friendly to Mother Nature for me to discharge. Class A effluent going into the ground, taking care of the wasp sludge, making it a biomaterial that can be used and land applied to grow other things. So that was a really nice part. We've gone through the expansion of Nisqually housing. I'm currently in phase 3 of a housing road project, developing for 120 homes, tribal homes, facilities, health clinics, elder center, parks. Tim and I have worked together on a park project. So we are continuing to grow at an exponential rate, and we are still catching up under the planning element. Critical mass. Oh my goodness. We are kind of tight in our land area. We only have so much room. We're trying to expand, the JBLM is our biggest neighbor and the most difficult neighbor we can deal with. They don't want to give up land. We have to train over here. Oh, no, you don't. We haven't seen you there in 10 years. Anyway, so we have to be very careful about how we plan our area. We're constricted, but we have needs that exceed our current boundaries. And so we have to be very creative. Housing being number 1, facilities being number 2. But 1A is infrastructure. Clean water, clean land, clean air. And that's kind of been our mode of operandi for about 15 years now. Tribal planning is different. And anyone who has been in tribal land, anyone who's experienced any work with tribes will know it's not your normal day-to-day business out there, but it is one of the richest environments I have ever worked in. I've got an extensive history. I've been around the world a few times. I got my career started in a different model than most. I started at the top of the pyramid, the triangle, excuse me, working with the Centers for Disease Control, World Health Organization. I went around the world working on water systems. I saw what contaminated water systems do to populations, to infant mortality rates, to different species. And I said, okay, I need to get down to the bottom of this triangle and work locally. I started globally, went down to locally, and it's been the greatest trip I've ever had. How many students do we have here? Really? All right.
Saw you guys, was sitting right next.
I'm probably running a little bit long than what I should have, but with the students, I'll offer you this little piece that my father gave me. He says, education is an important component for your, whatever it is you choose to do. But you remember that you are learning what has already been learned, right? It's important. But also keep in mind that your curiosity and ingenuity are what leads us to discovery. It really is. So you apply what you have learned, but stay curious. Really, apply those principles that you have learned, but allow your curiosity to take you. That's what it is. I was involved in a study program in one of my stops in Albuquerque, New Mexico, working for Miox Corporation. That's where I started my first contract with the World Health Organization for indigenous tribes around the globe. We invented for the Department of Defense originally a briefcase-sized mixed oxidant generator to take care of contaminated water source. The old salt and water type process where you get a mixed oxidant, treat bad water, and take care of the people. But in that work, I learned that the true basis of success is in your measure to impact the lives of others. And as a public works director, that's what I feel I wake up to every day. Make a difference. Really make a difference. That's all I ever wanted to do. I could have stayed on the commercial side. I could have stayed on the vendor side. I could have stayed on the consultant side and probably made a lot more money like this guy. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. But that's not where it took me. And I'm proud to say that the Nisqually people, the salmon of the Nisqually River, and the Nisqually watershed are in good hands because of the planning groups that we have in our DNR, in our master planning group, our public works group, our building department, and the exponential, I guess, the awakening of the Nisqually tribe and how we go about our business. And if at any point any of you come down to 15 miles east of Olympia, feel free. I would be more than happy to give you a tour of the reservation that I have served for 15 years very proudly. And it is, I think, a model for that area. And I would love to show you what I feel are our sustainable infrastructure. And we continue to strive to make it better, to protect the water source, to take care of the storm water, to ensure that the wastewater is done properly. And we're going into air, we're going into land, we're doing the types of things we have to do in order to create this sustainability. And the only way we can do that is by the students who stay curious, right? Thank you very much. And I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you all. I hope you have a great conference today. And unfortunately, I have to leave a bit early because I have a commitment over at Gonzaga and Spokane later today. So thank you. Thought we were doing them together.
Hello, good morning, everybody. My name is Tim Lehman. I'm Northern Arapaho, Wind River Reservation in the state of Wyoming. I've born and raised in Montana, but I've been out in Coast Salish territory for a long time now, 30 years or so. So I very much consider these places my home. Currently a lecturer for the University of Washington Landscape Architecture program. As Tony alluded to, I do a lot of contract work with a lot of different organizations to help further progress the idea of indigeneity within the city of Seattle and beyond. What I focus on primarily is celebrating who we are through the process of design and new designs that are created to bring us together. If you all don't know, assimilation has torn our people apart, and it's time to reclaim who and what we once were. Thank you. In that regard, I take it on myself to try to herd everybody like little kittens, come together and get projects done. Point out Lisa's right here. So Green Seattle Partnership is a real important One with Daybreak Star and all the work that's been going out in Discovery Park. We've been in the news a bit now for the work that's been going on out there. Just a small project that's being able to reconnect urban indigenous folk to the land that they were once removed from and help to celebrate who they are through stewardship. Because if you did not know, and what we've been saying for a long time, is that we were the original stewards of these lands. Yeah, another project I've been working on is with Elizabeth Ludon and Waterworks on the Sweetgrass Shoreline Restoration Project, which is trying to re-establish salmon habitat within the Lake Washington Ship Canal and what that all entails. Another great example of that is that Lake Washington, if you don't know, is a reverse hydrology. It works against nature, that nothing grows along the shores, and that's how the Corps wants it. However, when salmon really do rely on that habitat, how do we go about and thinking creatively to reestablish that and what that actually looks like? So getting indigenous communities on board has been a process of its own, but just trying to get plants to survive in a hostile environment, which it shouldn't be, right? Wyra 8, very large Cedar River watershed. It's trying to get things to survive where water temperature is lethal currently for salmon as it now stands. Doing everything we possibly can to help mitigate those dangers to reestablish this dying population. I am now the new Indigenous Strategic Advisor for the Office of Community Development and Planning, or Planning Community Development. I'll be taking the role on again to helping out these marginalized communities that are pockets of us all around the city of Seattle, and just trying to help out where I can in creating and strategizing. I love that word. That's not a word. On how to again overcome the idea and the result of assimilation and what that actually is. In terms of anything else, let's see how much more time have we got here? Yeah, we're gonna move on straight to questions.
I'm not nervous. Do you guys want to keep this mic? Fantastic. Well, thank you for sharing a bit about yourselves. And I have some questions. We're really here to talk a bit about green infrastructure. What is it? We all have an idea of what it is, but what is it in Indian country, urban, reservation-wise? Tribal planning is different than conventional planning. And I think one of the main differences is how we engage community and how we consult the elders and leaders in our community, and that our natural resources are co-located and work with our cultural resources, and that it's all informed by our traditional life ways. And the main thing is that we belong to that land and not the other way around. So the people that have been here the longest and have belong to this land the longest I want to take a moment to acknowledge the Snoqualmie tribe. I had invited Cindy Spirey, who's the director of Snoqualmie Natural Resources and Environment. She is the vice president for the Tribal Solid Waste Advisory Network. Unfortunately, she had another event she had to get to, but she'll gladly join us in the future. And she and I help organize the Tribal Green Summit. And that Green Summit is an event that includes tribes from all over much like ATNI, which is the Affiliated Tribes of Northwest Indians. It's an event where lots of natives can get together and talk about critical issues. So when we gather together, we're able to share our ideas. And I'm thrilled to be here today that we can share some of these ideas. And hopefully it's the first step in many steps on a path together where we can now, how does Austin Powers say it? Cross-mogenate, baby. Right? Very serious business. So my first question for the two of you are, yeah, I jokes. How do you feel your education prepared you for the job you do now?
It didn't.
Short answer, good. But Tim did. I think this one really pertains to Tim being the alum, but you go first.
As I had alluded to earlier, it gave me a framework for what I should do in my job, but it didn't really fill me in when it come to the tribal environment in my work. I was fortunate enough, I grew up for a good portion of my childhood on Molokai in Hawaii. There are parallels there from the tribal environment. We have 5 major families on the island. There is the constant battle for leadership from that island. And so there, I had somewhat of a feeling as to what I was getting into. And that paid dividends for me as I got to work for the tribe. My education gave me a foundation of what I felt to be the most important things for the Nisqually tribe. Since my education, which was 19, of course, innovations have come about to continue not only my education, but the applicable components of that, sustainable designs and applications for the Nisqually tribe. I've been fortunate enough to have a good solid group around me in order to say, hold on, Tony, that's not really a good idea at this point. I listen to the people who are smarter than I am and make the proper designs accordingly. So my education helped, but it was my curiosity and ingenuity that got me to the next step.
Educated, as you heard, I was part of UW for like 30 years, it feels like. Actually, that's almost true, now that I teach there. Yeah, education definitely played an important role. However, I think my ability to just question everything, right? In my teachings, compared to what I was taught as a youth from my family, always butted heads, right? Always asking questions. So understanding where, especially in terms of stewardship and what things mean, relationships to the land and what that actually meant, became an important relationship in my own head, right? Understanding that everything that I was taught was primarily Western, Euro, Anglo-based ideologies that definitely are not the practices and ideas of my people. So being able to go in and just say, why are we doing this at times? Whether it be a landscape architecture plan or something to do with planning, looking at wealth, right, as a community, is that we don't have monetary value on things. Time is a construct. We don't follow actual time, right? We follow seasons. We listen and we pay attention to what's going on around us, and then we act accordingly. Discuss in groups as large as this to create decisions. Yes, our elders guide us, but we come together as a whole community in understanding what it is, how we need to move forward. Definitely principles that are not what I was taught getting my college degrees. But it's important to understand them and how we can leverage our education against whatever it is we're trying to do and accomplish. And that's what's become really important to me. But then also understanding everybody else's thinking and trying to understand at what point they were trying to get to and the decisions that were being made. And always, again, coming to a compromise after the fact and understanding that 2 cultures are kind of butting heads. Where's the compromise and how we come to a mutual agreement or understanding?
I've got my own microphone. So in a minute, we're going to get to some question and answer where you can come up to the mic and ask these guys a question. So while you think about that, I have one more question for you until we wrap it up. But, you know, in tribal communities, we have, as Tim mentioned, it's almost the opposite. Our wealth systems are based on what we give away. Our value and our, you call that when you have people look up to you, clout? Yeah. The more you have to give away, the cooler you are. It's the technical term. So the giveaway is potlatching is what it's called. And you save up and your whole tribe gets together making gifts. And one event where you can see a sample of this is a canoe journey, where everyone is invited to come and take part in the cultural sharing. And people outside who are non-native that want to come in and witness that are invited to the protocol tent to witness the songs and dances and come eat the food and share, and see some of what tribal culture, Coast Salish culture is about. So I get the privilege of helping to organize the green team. It's an awesome opportunity for people to come and volunteer for a 4-hour shift, get fed, get a t-shirt, get the t-shirt. I do it for the t-shirt. And we compost and recycle. And that's how I met Tony, is he's the one who designed the coolest water refilling station ever. Like, we put 6 of those up and a whole infrastructure for the camping. And so this is a huge event that happens annually in the summer. There's 100 dugout canoes that come ashore. They have protocol. And then we gather together for a week potlatching, giving away the wealth that we've accumulated all year. Salves, drums, hats, you know, the multiple things that we make as a community that have been infused with our prayer and our love. And as we paddle along the water, all of our prayers go, every dip of the paddle is a prayer. We're telling the stories of that place. We are remembering and living in relationship with that watershed. This is the way it's been forever. Those are the traditional highways of people from this place, right? In that book back there, you'll see that most of the place names are situated to the water. So this big event that happens every year, I get to do green team, he gets to do the infrastructure. Tim's working with communities as well. There's a whole lot of people. There's like 10,000 people that first day. And what happens when a bunch of people get together? A ton of garbage. Oh, maybe 50 tons of garbage, right? How do we divert that from the landfill? How do we take that garbage or just not reduce it in the first place? And, you know, how do all these items that we give away not end up in the landfill? So like really materials management, how much stuff do we have? Where does it go? How does it impact the water, right?
Let me interject for just 1 second.
Yes.
A crash course in master planning. There you go.
Yeah.
In 2015, I was given the task of preparing for the canoe journey, paddle to Nisqually. I had 8 months to clear 32 acres of forested land, prepare for a week stay of 5,000 of your best friends. And that included laundry, dining, showers, water, all the infrastructure you needed. I had 8 months. I also had to devise the operations plan because there was only one way in and one way out. So you can imagine the food deliveries and all the support systems that were required to sustain happy people for a week under those conditions. So that was a crash course in master planning, all hands on deck. And I devised that operations plan that actually is a living document. It's about this thick, 11 by 17 drawings and directions and lessons learned and directives and resolutions and approvals, and it was probably one of the most painstaking periods of my life. Also, one of the most rewarding because I got to see in the dancing, the protocol and all that. So that was a crash course for tribal master planning.
Just for reference, the impact that event had on the community is still talked about to this day, and doing the design for the 12-acre park out there with the local community. We will be celebrating that in multiple ways because it had that large of an impact for the group.
Okay, so what is the most important piece you're going to take home today? Muckleshoot is hosting Canoe Journey this summer. Canoes will be coming ashore at Alki all day long, Alki Beach, hundreds of canoes, tons of tribal and mixed, all of us, we're all going to be there, right? You're going to meet me there, 200 of my best friends. The first day is about landing protocol. It's July 30th. It's best to come probably about 10 in the morning. Bring your own coffee cup. Plenty of coffee and your own picnic. And then the whole week we'll be out at Muckleshoot on the reservation, potlatching and having cultural protocol. You're welcome to come serve some time on the green team. We'll have a hub as per the standard operations. There's going to be a waste sort center. There'll be different stations people can man or woman or whatever. At 10 p.m. we have a dance party with solar disco lights. I'm just saying, it's a lot of fun. It's good, dirty fun. Tribal planning is probably a lot more funny. My party is better than your party. Let's take some questions. This is your opportunity to come and ask some questions about urban or reservation planning. I know that there's got to be a couple out there. No? Yes? Come on up. Right over there. There's a microphone on the left, and that's the microphone.
Hello, good morning. Thank you for coming. My name is Dakota Keene, and I'm a landscape architect at Methuen. Definitely met
Hi,
you.
Dakota.
Hello, nice to see you. This is my question, just on the heels of Stefan Clausen mentioning that this campus has hired a tribal liaison, and then Tim, you speaking to reconnecting urban indigenous communities as stewards of the land. And we're hearing more and more about institutions, particularly college campuses all around the region, needing to do land acknowledgement and trying to find deeper ways to do that through stewardship. So my question is, can you describe respectful ways to approach tribes for stewardship without asking for something that isn't going to be reciprocated? So a reciprocal relationship establishment. So the approach and some different structures for that, whether it's hiring a tribal liaison or if there are other ways that that could happen. Does that question, that was a bit long-winded, but did that question make sense?
Totally makes sense.
Okay.
It's a really great question.
Thank you.
Yeah, it is happening more and more and around. Starting with the tribal liaison is a very good start. Hopefully they're indigenous. That's always very important as well, right? In that regard. But creating these reciprocal relationships, right? What I do in my work more than anything is just talking and less of the talking on my side, but just listening. So inviting those groups that you want or specific tribes, like here it's what's Snoqualmie, correct? Understanding a bit of the history on where tribes once were, where they were located, And then in that regard, being able to reach out to the appropriate folk. All of these tribes out here have kind of your go-to people that you would outreach to and communicate with. Having a tribal liaison helps in that regard of they will probably know who to talk to. For, you know, the Nisqually have at least 5 people that I can just go to and say, hey, we need to, you know, let's discuss something and give me the right people to be, who do I need to turn to? All and up and down Sailor Sea and the coast in itself, every tribe has those groups of people they can turn to. Culturally, we actually have those folks in place. That's kind of their role within the community to be able to do that. But then in terms of what then can happen and to kind of tell that story is, again, Daybreak Star is a really good example of that, is just being able to, if it's a land acknowledgement you can give, well, you know, set a piece of land aside to, you know, design in terms of what it might have been or how it may celebrate that culture. In Daybreak Stars area, we're planting the crap out of wapato and huckleberry and things that we can use to create salves, medicines, things that we need to digest for, you know, for our culture and what that looks like. So in regards to that, that could be the acknowledgement of itself. And that definitely applies to what MIG could do. And it doesn't have to be, you know, even an acre. It can be small bits and parts. If it's an acknowledgement, it's an acknowledgement. But going about it in a way would be to set up what we refer to as talking circles, where we kind of all get together, what's important, you pulling out those elements and just doing the listening. Talking circles. Yeah, talking circles, right? If you all don't know, we like to circle up and just chat and listen to our elders and listen to what they have to say. So that's the more you can have those and establish a rapport with the community as you're trying to engage with, the better that relationship can mend, because we all have those relationships at one point in time. But right now we're definitely focused on trying to get our people back to prosperity.
Very quickly, I'll just reiterate, and I couldn't say it any better. Well done. In order to get a seat at the table, you do need the tribal liaison. And in order that, what that gives you is a seat at the table eventually. There are parallels to the protocols between tribes and how things are done. But there are some significant differences tribe to tribe that must be recognized. And it may be a while before you even get to the table, but going through that tribal liaison will certainly shorten that period. Understanding that and being flexible enough to say, okay, I'm good. I can wait. Tribal liaison will get you a seat at the table.
For the talking stick, we're at 5 minutes. This is very important. We often get the land acknowledgement question, people wanting to show respect. Like, how do we engage with Native people? How do we engage with tribes? And there's a very important distinction that I want to make clear. Tribes are sovereign nations. And if you are from an institution, your tribal liaison is a diplomat, right? And there are protocols in place, and each tribe is different. Thank you for saying that. And there's also a level of subtlety to land acknowledgements versus tribal consultation, right? So often as a Native nonprofit, we get asked questions that are really meant for tribes, and it's important to make the distinction. These people are a nation unto themselves, And there's a consultation process that is very high level. Leanne Burke in the back, who is the tribal liaison for the Puget Sound Partnership, is a state agency recently hired through the budgeting through the HEAL Act. You know, it's a government to government relationship, very high level. But we as common people, how do we acknowledge each other and interact with each other in a way that is respectful to our different communities, that recognizes our significant differences and celebrates them? The answer is in the land. You are acknowledging the land. We belong to the land. The particles and dust and dirt it contains the bones of the people that have lived here for millennia. It is in the soil. The people from this place are in the soil of the land. And when you arrive on land, when I arrive on land, at least, let me talk from my own perspective, I put tobacco down, or I say a prayer, or I take some time to recognize the landscape, the way the sun comes in. I take a moment to appreciate the place, because we are place keepers. We take care of the places that we live in. That's our job. And so, yes, we belong to land. Some people have belonged longer than others, but I also belong to this place, and I'm going to do my part. And we are collaborators, and I respect people who have been here longer. They know more than I do, right? I'm going to ask them, how do I do this the best way possible? Will you share that with me? I appreciate your knowledge and that you have done this for longer. So we have something in common, and we have something that we're significantly different, right? My ancestors are in the dirt around the Great Lakes. My ancestors are in the dirt in Ireland. My ancestors are in the dirt in Scotland and France. Have I visited those places? Half of them. I'd go see my ancestors and talk to that dirt in Ireland next. So I want to say we're at 2 minutes. Are there any other questions? Because we might just wrap up with a final reflection. Yes. Is that an ownership question? I want to restate the question for the people who are watching. Ownership. Intellectual property.
Yeah, absolutely. I think in my first few years there, I had to establish myself as part of the community. And in doing that, I think I exampled it by doing the due diligence required. And to answer your question, one of the first big projects I did early on, I'm gonna say it was somewhere around 2010. City of Olympia had a McAllister Springs. It was traditionally within the greater service area of the Nisqually tribe. So we undertook a mediation plan in the area. And to mitigate taking McAllister Springs offline, the surrounding communities had to say, okay, we're gonna pay attention to stream flows. We're going to do this, we're going to do that. At that time, we had negotiated what I think was the first ever recorded water right transfer off reservation to a Native American tribe. So we got 3 million gallons a day sitting in bank right now. That's not part of the reservation, but it's within our usual and custom area. With that, and my explaining it to the tribal community, they saw me as looking into their best interests. And so I became a thread within the fabric of the community at that point. And it made it much easier in my job and in the future, not only for them to accept my decision-making, but for them to feel free to come and give me the input that they needed for their community. So as a non-native, I had to establish parallels in order for me to do my job correctly, seeing that there were benefits of what I was doing for them. But they also understood I was doing it for my own benefit too, because I felt good doing it. So it came across. Does that answer your question? Okay, very good.
I think that's not all the time we have. Oh, it's the music playing. Dun, 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 dun. So we just want to say thank you and wrap it up. And we'll be towards the back of the building. If you have further questions, please just, I want to talk to each and every one of you. I probably don't have that much time. But that's it for today. Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Tim. Thanks everyone for your time.